Now at 4:30, it is day 2 of former President Donald Trump's New York trial. The court is searching for jurors to weigh in on allegations that Trump was part of an illegal hush money scheme.
Washington, D.C. correspondent Hannah Brandt tells us where things stand right now.
On day 2 of his criminal trial, Donald Trump came out swinging.
This trial is a disgrace.
The trial centers on accusations that Trump illegally falsified business records as part of a hush money scheme to cover up alleged affairs. But he denies those accusations.
I was paying a lawyer and marked it down as a legal expense. Some accountant, I didn't know, marked it down as a legal expense. That's exactly what it was.
Right now, the court is working through jury selection. The judge has already dismissed dozens of people who say they cannot be fair and impartial. But lawyers are questioning dozens more in an effort to find 12 jurors and 6 alternates who will ultimately decide whether or not to convict the former president. Back in D.C., Republican Congressman Troy Nehls railed against the trial.
America, quite honestly, should be ashamed of what's taken place.
Stuck in court for what's expected to be a weeks-long process, Trump expressed frustration about the timing.
I should be right now in Pennsylvania, in Florida, in many other states, North Carolina, Georgia, campaigning.
And President Joe Biden is doing just that. He's spending the next 3 days making his re-election pitch in Pennsylvania, which is expected to be a crucial battleground state for 2024.
Donald Trump looks at the world differently than you and me. He wakes up in the morning in Mar-a-Lago thinking about himself.
We are joined now by Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, social media playing a big part in some of the questioning for jurors. What is the concern here for attorneys?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. Prosecutor Steinglass started off his day by saying we need jurors who can set aside any strong feelings they have for one way or the other and focus on the evidence. This case has nothing to do with your personal politics. And so the question about social media is that questionnaire. It talks about, like, have you attended a Trump rally? Do you think politics or religion will sway your thought process? And so if you answer no to that, after the judge says, okay, I'm satisfied, now the attorneys get an opportunity to go in there and ask their questions. Well, so they'll say, hey, Brian, I see you answered no that you wouldn't be swayed politically, but then I saw on social media you were happy and ecstatic that the president lost. Tell me about that. Is that different or the same than what you answered in this thing? And so you're trying to make them seem like they're lying. And then you'd say, well, were you lying then or were you lying now? Anyway, you can go back to getting the judge to say, okay, I'll remove this person because they were untruthful. They tried it with a person's husband's social media post, not the actual person, but their husband's. The judge said that's not enough. They tried it with an individual taking a video, and she said, listen, this was celebratory. I saw the video. People were out on the street celebrating because the president just was elected. Okay, they didn't remove her, but the person that said, we got to get him out of here, let's get rid of him, lock him up, they did remove that individual for a social media post. And so they're looking at every post, but I can tell you this, the judge is not happy with this line of questioning. The judge is saying, listen, why didn't you ask these questions right on direct as opposed to waiting and try to catch them in a lie?
And just showing how big of a role social media is playing now, especially in a criminal case. And if people are following along, they're either doing so from major news outlets and getting minute by minute or on Twitter. Why are we seeing the updates from court in that way? Why are we not getting or seeing and hearing what's actually happening?
Local court rules dictate if a courtroom will be open for cameras to be in there. And I mean, in the federal court system, there's absolutely no cameras, but each courtroom on the state level can determine by the individual judge if they'll have an opportunity to have a camera in that courtroom. The judge I decided early on, and New York is synonymous with not having cameras in the courtroom, but most of the time on the state level, a judge individually or on the local overall setting of the court will make a decision. So I anticipated no judge, because remember, when Trump turned himself in, the hallway is all we had. We didn't have anything else, so we knew early on that there would be no camera in the courtroom, and so he's still using that hallway in front of the doors as his pulpit, to say the least. But at the very minimum, we'll get no insight. All we'll get is tweets, we'll get text messages, we'll get updates quickly for what's happening in the courtroom on the fly as we go.
One of the things that has come out about today's court proceedings is that Trump was admonished by the judge. What happened there?
The admonishment was something that is normal in a court setting, but his behavior was not normal. When you're selecting a jury, the judge will instruct you before the jury comes out. Don't make eye contact with them in a way that's attempting to kind of, coach them off the talking. Don't kind of, stare them down as a way to intimidate them. So when the one juror was being questioned, Trump was looking at them and kind of like speaking, to them under his breath. Once the juror was removed out of the courtroom, the judge actually addressed it head on and said, Trump, you can't do that. That's something that I won't stand for. If you do it again, there will be punishment and there will be penalty. I think the judge gave him an extra leeway because typically in court, if something like that would happen, the judge would have went off and there would have been way more than what happened. I think the judge is anticipating what he talked about yesterday. Trying to figure out how I can punish a former president that has Secret Service detail and all that is a tricky maneuver, but he's doing everything he can to try to let him know that, listen, this is my courtroom, and while you're within these walls, you have to follow the rules just like everybody else, and then you cannot, in any instance as a defendant, talk to a juror.
Specter of jail hanging over his head, yeah.
Well, at least the specter. I really don't see how logistically you can have that happen. Now, he can say it, he can threaten it, but I mean, it's someone that's smarter than me can figure out how you put a man in jail that's also going to have a Secret Service detail go in there with him. I just don't see it happening.
All right, Khalif, thank you.